Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Welcome to Fusion Mobile e-learning clinic. My name is Sonia Lalo and I'll be guiding you through the chemistry course. In this particular lesson, we want to consider radioactivity and nuclear energy. I will start with radioactivity, then we'll look at the types of radiations, then we'll talk about detection of radiations, radioactive disintegration, biological effects of radiations, uses of radiation, radioisotopes. Then we'll consider nuclear energy. Under nuclear energy, we'll look at binding energy, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, and then we'll consider nuclear energy of power, nuclear energy for power. All right, let's start with radioactivity. When we say a particular substance is radioactive, what we mean is simply that the particular compound decomposes spontaneously in the presence, under normal condition. It decomposes spontaneously at a steady rate. That is, any component that does this is described as a radioactive substance. Any substance that does this is described as a radioactive substance. Radioactivity was first observed and at a normal pace, but it was later noticed that the radioactivity occurring in a particular substance containing uranium was of a very high rate, and the scientists conducting this experiment, Pearl and Marie Curie, they discovered that the component was not just uranium, rather it contained thorium and radon, which are two very interesting radioactive substances. So notice that radioactivity is not something that is just restricted to it's not a chemical process that just occur normally. And there are certain things we should understand about radioactivity. Radioactivity is not influenced by temperature, is not influenced by pressure. It is not increased or decreased by the effect of either temperature or pressure. Well, also it is good to note that radioactivity, when it occurs, it can occur at different levels, at different types. There are different types of radioactivities. There are different types of radioactive substances. There are different particles, or let me put it this way, different substances that can be generated, that can be emitted during radioactivity. We have the first substance, which we call the alpha particle. These are the types of radiations. We have the alpha particle. The alpha particle has the nuclei of helium atom. So it is oftentimes written as this. It has the nucleus of it has the appearance of an helium atom. When it is passed through an electric field, it is deflected slightly. It is deflected slightly, and it is a fast-moving radiation. It's a fast-moving radiation. So it possesses a mass of about 4, and it has 2 protons. We also have what we call, it can be, when it is moving, it can be stopped by paper. It can be stopped by paper or by aluminum foil of about 0.1 millimeters. So it is something that can be easily stopped. It can be easily deflected. We also have the second which is called the beta ray, the alpha ray, the beta ray. Now our beta ray is exactly like an electron. It's like an electron. It has no mass, but a -1 charge. No mass, but a -1 charge. Now, when it is deflected, when a magnetic field is introduced around it, it is widely deflected. The mass of it is about 1/1840. 1 divided by 1840, and that's a very, very small mass compared to 1. That's about 0.0005 thereabout. So that's why we take it as it has no mass. And of course, apart from the fact that of the mass and the charge that it does carry, yes, it has a higher permeability compared to the alpha particle. It can penetrate paper, it can penetrate 1 millimeter or 0.1 millimeter of aluminium, but it can be restricted as well. It can be stopped by, sorry, I forgot. It can be stopped by an aluminium plate. It can be stopped by an aluminium plate. So beta particle can also be stopped. This is alpha and this is beta. Alpha and beta. And then we'll talk about the gamma ray. The gamma ray. The gamma ray, which is simply represented by the symbol gamma. Of course, gamma. It possesses no mass, it possesses no neutron, no electron, no charge, nothing. But it is a radiation. It is an electromagnetic radiation which has even a shorter wavelength and a higher frequency compared to the other two. It has a shorter wavelength and a higher frequency compared to the other two. It is also a very, very fast moving radiation, and it has a higher permeability than both of them. It has a higher permeability than both of them. In fact, when it penetrates, it can penetrate even as far as a block of lead, about 0.5 meters of a block of lead. So it takes blocks of lead to actually stop it from penetrating. That is how strong gamma rays are. Now, there's one beautiful thing all about radiations. All these radiations, when they pass through substances, we do not see them. They are not visible to the eye. But when they pass through substances, they leave traces, they leave signs. Of course, all the radiations have effect on photographic sheets, photographic films. So we can picture them on photographic films. There are very many uses that we can use them for, such as medical uses, as cutting of cancerous cells, treatment of certain diseases, and even bombardment with other compounds for nuclear reactions to take place. All right, let's go ahead. We've talked about radioactivity and types of radiation. Let's take a short break now. During this short break, some questions will be asked. You see some questions being displayed on your screen. These questions are to test your understanding based on what has been taught in this lesson so far. So we want to know how much you've understood in what has been taught. Please do answer these questions, and we'll get back to you in a jiffy. Welcome back. So we've considered radioactivity and the types of radiation. Let's consider detection of radiation. To detect that the radiation is being emitted in a particular region, or even the specific type of radiation, we can use one of these equipments. We can use the gigamulus counter, we can use the scintillation counter, or the diffusion cloud chamber. Now, the gigamulus counter uses the concept of the knowledge that when a particular radiation passes through a particular place, a particular gas, it would leave a trademark on the gas. It will leave some form. It will ionize the gas. So they simply take. Both of them made a kind of system that has electrical charges within the gas, so that when the particular radiation passes through and ionizes, they can detect by an increase in voltage or electric current, which would bring about a deflection of a particular lava, or a sound would be produced. So that is the technique for the gigamula. The scintillation counter, it uses the understanding of the fact that when radioactive waves, that is emissions, radioactive emissions, strike some certain materials, some certain metals. They become, they give off life. They become, they react in an efflorescent manner. They give out some light. So when this particular radiation strikes on these materials, light is being emitted, and one is able to detect their presence. The diffusion cloud chamber simply tries to track the paths of the radiation. So it tracks the path of the radiation, and you can tell the type of radiation based on the wavelength of the displayed by the counter of the chamber. All right. Let's quickly talk about radioactive disintegration. When we're talking about radioactive disintegration, it means when you hear the word disintegration, it means to break down into simpler parts. To break two things, to break something down into two or more parts. So when we talk about radioactive disintegration, we're talking about the splitting of a radioactive substance. The splitting of a radioactive substance. When a particular radioactive substance begins to split, it begins to lose its form. You may leave like maybe 1 kilogram of it on the ground today, and you come back tomorrow and you find about maybe 0.75 kilograms there. The other 0.25 kilograms has been disintegrated. So what causes it? It is simply about the nature of the material, the nature of the substance, and there is nothing you can do to prevent it from occurring. There's nothing that can be done to stop radioactive disintegration from taking place. So what are the kinds of things that we observe during radioactive disintegration? Apart from the fact that the volume of the substance is reducing, we also discover that some radioactive emissions are also being given off. Sometimes you can have alpha particles, so we have the situation of alpha radiation. That's alpha disintegration. In alpha disintegration, you have a particular substance that is disintegrated, and then you have a new substance from which actually has the alpha particle subtracted out of it. Also, we have the beta emission. We have the beta disintegration. In beta disintegration, a beta particle is being separated from an existing cell, so an existing substance. So that is that in that order. And for gamma, most of the time what we find gamma radiation, it is in absolute dissociation of particular compounds such as uranium. Also, we have many different of substances that do disintegrate. So for us to understand how these substances do disintegrate, we have to study a lot of different materials. So let's see what the uranium disintegration chart looks like. About now, you'll be seeing the chart on your screen. It shows uranium at the top, and after uranium, the uranium loses some alpha particle and becomes thorium. Then it loses beta to become protactum, another beta to become uranium again, and then it loses alpha again to become thorium. Loses alpha to get to radium, and like that it goes on changing in its form until it gets to a stable form, which is lead. Let's talk about nuclear stability. Nuclear stability. When we're talking about nuclear stability, it means that it gets to a point where the nucleus of the substance, of the radioactive substance, is stable. So what are the conditions that are required for a radioactive substance nucleus to be stable? The substances or conditions that are required for the core or the nucleus of a radioactive substance to be stable. Radioactive substances that are of the lighter metals are whose proton to neutron ratio is about 1, are stable, and those as it grows higher to about 80 plus, when it is between 1 and 1.5, and it is that's the ratio of the proton to neutron. Proton to neutron is between 1 and 1.5, then the nucleus would be stable. But when it is above this range, when it is above 1.5, the nucleus will be unstable, and it will be a radioactive substance. It will be a radioactive substance. It will want to lose some of its radiation, some of its charges, some of its neutrons to the atmosphere, so it can feel comfortable. Okay, let's quickly talk about the biological effects of radiations. So we talk about the biological effects of radiation. Well, mild doses of radiation have the ability to change cell structure. It can lead to certain illnesses, can lead to certain diseases. It can even change the body chemistry. It can alter the way your body functions. It can lead to infection, diseases such as leukemia, such as anemia. It can even cause cancers, different kinds of cancers. Cancer can spring out from nowhere, of course, since it can lead to mutation. It can lead to mutation as well. In large volume, in large doses, it oftentimes results to death. So it is advised that whenever one wants to move around regions where a large amount of emission, radioactive emission is around, one should get either a thick lead block, or one should go for very heavy aluminum block. Or better still, one can go for a refracted concrete wall. This wall prevents the refracted concrete wall prevents the passage of even the gamma radiation from getting to the other side. So that's about biological effects of radiation. So what are the uses of radioisotopes? What are the uses of radioisotopes? They can be used first and foremost for treating different kind of illnesses. For example, the gamma radiation is being used for cutting off some cancerous cells from the body and taking care of for some therapies. It can be also, the gamma ray can also be used for sterilization, sterilizing of certain materials, and when it sterilizes, it leaves the material germ-free and radiation-free. That is the beauty of it. It leaves the material germ and radiation-free. Of course, industrially, you can use gamma and beta ray for some monitoring processes. You can use it to monitor the thickness of paper, thickness of aluminum foil, which is being worked upon in the factory. And of course, it can be synchronized with the system such that when it gets to a certain degree, certain volume, or a certain depth or length, it would cut off the work. Also, it can be used in agricultural research for inducing mutation. Of course, when we do these things, when we do this agricultural research, we understand more about our environment, about things. When we know more about, when we are able to monitor these things, we are able to induce a mutation in them, then we can control them. We can control them, can put an end to many illnesses that could be affecting our crops, our animals, even ourselves, especially diseases that are communicated, that are transmitted through all these animals, especially to humans. Also, they can also be used as radioactive tracers. They can be used as radioactive tracers. You use them to monitor radiations. Use them to track down a particular radiation that is being, whether a particular thing is radiating. Of course, it is good to know when there is a radiation going on in a particular environment, so one can protect oneself. So these substances can be used to track it down. Also, they can be used for dating techniques. They can be used in dating techniques. What do we mean by dating techniques? We have been able to tell the age of some of the artifacts, and one of the major things that we use, the knowledge that we use, is the knowledge of half-life. Yes, half-life. Let's say something about the half-life. The half-life of a substance is the time that it takes half of that particular substance to disintegrate. The half-life of a substance is the time that it takes half of that particular substance to disintegrate. So these substances, they are disintegrating, we are observing them, and when we understand them, we understand how they work, we can actually take care of our environment and save our own lives as well. Alright, let's quickly look at the nuclear energy. So let's quickly talk about nuclear energy. When we talk about nuclear energy, what do we mean? Well, we've been talking about nuclear radiations and radiation all the while, and we have talked about radiations. We said that some things actually naturally they emit radiations. The kind of energy that is being produced through this kind of radiation is what is known as the nuclear energy. We cannot control the radiation. We cannot stop it from happening. We cannot stop it from occurring, and we cannot initiate it. But there is something we can do about it. We can tap it and harness it, use it for something more important, something more valuable. We can turn it into electrical power, into whatever kind of energy we need. As we know, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can be converted from one form of energy to another. So let's see, what can we do? There is also what is known as artificial transmutation. Artificial transmutation is simply when you by yourself induce a kind of a change. When you induce the radiation, the emission, or when you induce radiation, in this particular reaction, we have nitrogen being bombarded with an alpha particle, and it produces oxygen-17 and a proton particle. So you see, this particular system has been bombarded and it's produced a radiation. So we can initiate a radiation. Let's quickly talk about the binding energy. The binding energy is the amount of energy required to dissociate or to put together the nucleus of an atom. It is the amount of energy required to dissociate or put together the nucleus of an atom. So this formula here expresses what the binding energy is. Of course, we know this formula to be the formula by Albert Einstein. It is known as some people do call it the almighty formula. It is a formula that expresses the relationship between energy, mass, and speed. Well, the speed here is the speed of light, the mass here is the mass of the electrons and the protons, and the E here is the energy that is used up in or stored in the system. Alright, let's quickly discuss nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is simply the bombardment of a particular substance so that it can break down into two or more lighter atoms, two or more lighter molecules. So you break down a particular atom into two or more. That is, in this particular case, we have uranium being bombarded with one neutron, and it breaks down into barium and krypton. Of course, it emits 3 neutrons alongside. Of course, it will also emit some energy, and that is nuclear fission. It produces a lot of energy, quite volume of energy, but not as much as what we know as nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is when you put in together two different substances which are of lighter metals, and you mesh them together such that they produce a bigger one, and they will also liberate energy. In this particular case, we have the isotopes of hydrogen, that is deuterium and tritium. Now, when you react them together, they'll produce for you helium. They will liberate one neutron and also produce a very, very large amount of energy. This is a nuclear fusion process. What is a nuclear fission process? This is fission. This is fusion. Alright, whether fission or fusion, whenever we have a reaction that produces a volume of energy, we should be able to harness the energy and keep it. So when we have so much of energy being given out, either by the nuclear fusion or nuclear fission, we have so much energy being given out, we shouldn't just let those energy go to waste like that. So what can we do about it? We can connect it as in the diagram that will be shown on your screen just about now. Yes, from that diagram you can see that the nuclear reactor is connected to a kind of system, an heat system that will collect the heat from the system and would use it to turn the generator through a turbine. Yes, that is the idea. We can use it to generate electricity using an electric generator. We can use it to generate energy for running an industry or any other thing, any other purpose we need the energy for. Alright, in this particular lesson we looked at radioactivity and we focused also, or we talked about nuclear energy. We talked about radioactivity, looked at the types of radiations. We then discussed how to detect radiations, the different counters used, different materials used, and how they work. We talked about radioactive disintegration, mentioned half-life there. We talked about the biological effects of radiations, uses of radioisotopes. Then we went to talking about the nuclear energy, binding energy, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, and nuclear energy, how to use it for power. Alright, in a short while, some questions will be displayed on your screen. Please do answer them. We want to know what you understand from this lesson. And if there is any of those problems, any of those questions that proves to be problematic, you can go over the video one more time for clarification. Thank you.